Hey everyone, you are most welcome to the amazing episode of Rack Socials by Rising Beings. And today we have an interesting guest joining us all the way from USA, and we can call him the internet business expert genius Jake, who's going to share with us that how to sell our expertise through virtual events called 5 days challenge. So the more I talk about him, the less it would be. So let's hear more about the guest from himself only. So dear guest, you're most welcome on the show.
Cool, man. Well, being on, I appreciate it, man. And guys, congratulations and welcome for finding this show. So you are in good hands. I've heard his episodes before, and hopefully I can do justice and bring that to some extra value to your listeners. So I appreciate you with the invite.
Perfect, perfect. So, without wasting any time, I would love to get started with the question that we have over here. Is that
Mhm.
the first question that I ask in my episode of Rax Wishes is that please tell the audience where do you come from and how have you reached here so far?
Sure. So I'll kind of go back to where this whole thing started, and then it'll make sense as I share it. So parents divorced when I was a kid, and I turned to binge eating, and I struggled with weight all the way up through high school. And then as I began to really transform physically, I started to master myself mentally. And then through that process is when I had first actually got my hands on personal growth, personal development, just becoming like a better version of me. And through that, I fell in love with coaching, training, speaking. And it was kind of like through my transformation, I just fell in love and I had this passion of like, man, if I could do this for myself, what would that be like if I could do it for others? And I think a lot of business owners that are on here have gone through maybe something similar in their own personal lives where they experience something and then the fulfillment that they get from being able to help others go through that same kind of transformation. Like that's a lot of times why we get in the game. So fast forward, I got my undergraduate degree, took a few years off, tried to figure out what I wanted to do, went back, got my master's degree. And at that time, that's kind of also when I really started dipping my toe into entrepreneurship. And I'm like, man, if I can get paid to do this stuff that I love, like how cool would that be? And so I didn't know what I didn't know. All I knew was I wanted to get certified by everybody, right? So I started in the health and wellness space and I got like super into that. So I get all these certifications and then I get coaching certified, I get speaker certified, and I do all this stuff. And within about 2 weeks, I get all of these plaques, all of these diplomas, and I get all these boxes and I open them, I put them on my bed and I'm like, dude, this is awesome. What do I do with all of this? And I learned very quickly that just because you get more certifications and have a bunch of letters after your name, that does not always necessarily translate into clients, right?
Right.
And so I had a decision. I could either keep doing my 40 hours a week and get a biweekly paycheck and whatever else, or if I was really going to make my dreams come true. You ever have that feeling like you're meant for something more? You don't always necessarily know what it is, but like you should be doing it. So I had gone to my now wife or fiance, and I asked her, I said, hey, babe, I want to cash in my 401k and I want to play entrepreneur. Do you support me? And so she looked me in the face and she said, well, can you pay the rent? And can we pay the bills? I said, for 3 months, absolutely. And then after that, we're going to figure stuff out. So that was 8 years ago. Now, basically on that journey, I did what a lot of entrepreneurs in here probably start with. And they are like, okay, well, what does it even mean to be an entrepreneur? And so I was very fortunate. I had bumped into a couple guys that were doing things successfully. And I said, okay, well, I'm just going to learn trial by fire. So I kind of threw myself in there. And over the first 4 years, I'm just trying to figure out like, what are my skill sets? How can I start getting paid? And it was a great learning curve. So a lot of ups, a lot of downs. And just so you know, a lot of my background is like systems, operations, functionality, just, how do you take all these complicated things, mind map them? And that's what I loved. So process and whatever. And I got about 4 years in and there was a lot of big thoughts, big ideas, big intentions. And the idea that I was going to come in, set all this stuff up and then have a massive payout. Well, unfortunately, things did not go like that. And for whatever the reason was, cash flow issues, certain management decisions, I found myself out of a job. And as much as I enjoyed going home to the wife and be like, hey, I'm not sure how we're going to pay the rent, I figured now it's time for me to have my own program, my own asset, right? We want to have something that we can own. And so I started looking back to what I used to do successfully because, success leaves clues. And when we were in health and fitness, we used to run challenges all the time. So we would do like a squat challenge, a push-up challenge, things of that nature. And people loved it, right? So you're like, hey guys, we're gonna do like a 5-day, get healthy, and all the girls were like, well, I want a toned butt for summer, and whatever it was. So they got really excited. You put all these people in there, and part of the reason that we used to do that, and for my own weight loss journey. So do you know Weight Watchers? You're familiar with them?
Mm,
So
new to
it's
it.
basically it's okay. So Weight Watchers is it's like a weight loss international program. It's all throughout.
Okay.
What they do, the concept behind it is that you take a lot of people, all headed in one direction, i.e., to lose weight, keep weight off, whatever. And when you put a lot of people in one specific direction headed towards one goal, and you keep them accountable on a consistent basis, they've always showed that your numbers tend to skyrocket in terms of success. So knowing that, and I started looking, I'm like, okay, well, if I understood that model previously, I wonder if that same concept would apply to business. And the concept being, can I share value with a lot of individuals to get them one very specific result and hold them accountable? And so I was like, all right, well, let me give it a shot. So I did that for my business. First challenge I personally ran for myself online back in 2020. It was like an automation challenge. Had about 5 people in. And I had no idea what offer I was going to throw out there. I just knew, hey, I could probably help streamline some systems on the back end. And so we have, out of all these 5 people, I threw out the pitch on Thursday, 4th day of the challenge. And I said, hey guys, I'm going to help automate all your systems. We're going to do it for $6K. If you're interested, awesome. And we got a training tomorrow. And then I hopped off the camera. Within 30 minutes, man, I go outside to walk my dogs, and I see a notification on my phone that says, hey, congratulations, $6,000 just hit your account. You ever have that mind blown moment? It's like, oh my God, that actually just happened. So dude, I had no idea this was possible. 5 people, $6,000 in 4 days. And just the potential of what was possible, I was like, dude, if I can do that for me, I literally put this thing up. I promoted it for 1 week, only on Facebook, kept it organic. And I'm like, dude, if I can do that, there's no reason, A, that can't be scaled. And B, that this can be the one thing that I can get really good at, that I can leverage my skill sets to help other people do the same. And so fast forward, since 2020 up until this time, I've now gone through 6 iterations of what has now been called Epic Challenge Accelerator. And the concept is to go from idea to launched event in a 31-day time period. And our mission is to help 50,000 amazing online business owners to generate even more high-ticket clients, leveraging, in this case, a 5-day challenge or a 3-day challenge. So anyways, fast forward, that's how we basically got here to this point. Here's the reason why. When I was sitting there at my desk waiting to leave the corporate office, the only thing that pushed me over the edge to officially say, hey, here's my 401k and I'm just going to go chase my dreams, is because I heard the words of other guys in personal development videos, Les Brown, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, and all the rest of this. And because I got their message, I knew that the only way I was going to do this is if I took a jump. And had I not heard that, I'd probably still be working in a corporate office and I wouldn't be doing any of this. So I say all that to say, anyone here that is listening to this, or even for you, or anyone who's watching this afterwards, chances are you have a message that needs to get out to the masses. So if I'm able to give you a platform that allows you to just do what you do really well and not have to worry about any like the tech setup or the how-tos, because that's usually the biggest issue, man. I got all these people that are great at what they do, right? Health, wealth, relationships. They all say the same thing. I want to show up to a room full of people. I want to transform a lot of lives. I want to get paid really well to do it. That's it. And the second that you try and have them do something outside of that, like tech setup or set up copy or build funnels, it's like deer in headlight and eyes glaze over. So the whole intention on this, man, is there's like, if I can give it to the point where you can just type in answers, literally like, hey, what is your name? What is your colors? Like, and just make it super simple and everything just works. Then just think about the impact that you can have and the ripple effect, dude. It's wicked, and you can do some really cool stuff. So anyways, hope that answers your question.
Right. That's true. Right. And there's one thing that really excited me, and I felt like asking a question on that. As you mentioned, that you got 5 people to send you $6,000 in just 4 days. You said your mind was blown. I just wanted to know, how did that shift? Like, what was your thought process at that moment of time? Like, you thought, okay, is this really possible? Because I'm not sure if you charged before that amount to any individual. What was the shift that happened to you?
Yeah, I'd say it opened up a world of possibility because up until that point, it was a lot more, it was customizing systems in like a one-on-one fashion for a certain individual, right? So, but then I saw, and even what I was going to do with that person, yes, it was the same kind of concept, but the manner in which I could share a message with individuals, it now became a one-to-many model versus like a one-to-one kind of concept. Um, so, just proof of concept, the fact that I could show them something tremendously valuable. And by the way, that wasn't 5 people that bought; that was one person that bought. So just the idea that you can have a very small event with a very big payoff was a really 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 cool concept. And then the goal from there was, okay, as I keep doing this or as I show others how to do the same thing that I just did, how can you provide an offer, what I like to call like a no-brainer offer, where there's so much value that someone's willing to pay you a premium in the marketplace. You've already built this know, like, and trust factor over a very short time period, and it allows you to leverage your time as efficiently as possible. So, even if it is a relatively smaller group, well, dude, let's say it's a larger group. Let's say you got, 500 people at an event, 1,000 people at an event. At that point, it just becomes a numbers game. And so you figure, hey, if I get anywhere between, 5 to 20 to 30% plus in sales, and I can execute on a program that allows me to be scalable, then that puts you in a very, very solid position and a position to really be able to grow so you can have more impact, you can have more influence, you can generate more income, all from one event. And if a person only wants to do, let's just say, it's totally doable that someone can do 6 figures in a 5-day period. Now, obviously, there's a lot of pieces that go into that. It's not just right off the cuff, but I've seen people like, I'll give you a prime example. So there's a gentleman, Anthony. So he does relationship coaching. And prior, uh, he had gone through a good number of individuals working with them, invested probably about 20 grand, did a whole bunch of other stuff and tried everything, and basically had zero results. And he didn't quit. He didn't stop. And he was like, all right, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to do, whatever the program says to do. And he did it. And he went through the entire process. Originally only had maybe 5 people register, of which a couple were already previous clients. So I'll put it this way: his energy wasn't exactly like through the roof. So we showed him a couple different ways, and it turns out he wound up having like almost 40 people register for his event. Remember, it can still be small. I think maybe 12 or something like that showed up. Dude, he wound up he had 3 application calls and he closed 3 for 3, and he wound up with just over 9K. Okay, so you go from somebody that was making or having like a very challenging time to trying one thing on one event and generating just shy of 10K. And so we have a number of stories that are very similar to that. So I say all that to say it doesn't really matter what vertical you're in. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the game. I don't care if you're brand new, if you've been doing this for years and you're seasoned, or you're somewhere in between. It's a phenomenal way that if you are new, you can test an offer very quickly by providing value, building your email list, giving them, as much as you possibly can, giving them little micro wins, having them have a very clear path of where to go next. And then once you craft an offer, you get to just naturally extend your hand and say, hey, would you like to work with me moving forward? And if so, this is what it looks like. And if you've already, experienced, maybe you have a whole bunch of people, maybe you have a community, maybe you have an email list. This is just a different way to be able to get your message out there and to provide value in a different kind of format. And it's a lot of fun too, man. When you're on calls like this, an hour might seem long for 5 days. And some people, there's different ways to do challenges. We do them for an hour a day. That time flies. Like before you know it, you're already at day 5. You're like, hey guys, we're wrapping up today. People are, asking questions. They're feeling the transformation, like they're going through it. So it's out of all different strategies I've seen, this has to be one of the most powerful ways that I've seen across the board. And if you look at any big name guy that's out there or girl, they're all doing it, right? And they're doing it for a reason. Even Russell Brunson says part of his linchpin strategy everything that he does for any past product and any future product has some form of challenge elements. Russell Brunson, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Brendan Burchard, like you name it, like there's just a laundry list. So my thought on it is that if you're not leveraging something that is such a popular tool, I would ask why not? And dude, had I known this strategy when I first started, that would have made my life so much easier, and I could have tested out so many other things. I mean, obviously it took me a couple of years to finally get to that point, but fortunately now people have a tool. That's why I'm really trying to get this out there and say, like, look, there is an easier way to do this out of all different ways. That's one of my favorites.
All right. So there are a lot of great insights that you have shared over here with the audience. What I feel like is, let's say there is somebody, you mentioned it doesn't matter whether somebody is doing it for the 3 years, whether somebody is brand new into it. Anybody can get started with this 5 days challenge and get to the desired goal. That's something what you said, right? So let's say if I was to ask about a person who is a new individual into it, how they can get started and get the things done step by step.
Yeah. So we have something called the Perfect Challenge Blueprint. And that's basically the methodology that we take somebody through, to walk them through that process. If someone says, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, I would like to get, more clientele, whatever that looks like. So there's 5 phases that go into it in the Perfect Challenge Blueprint. So the first one is plan. You have to be hyper clear about who are you going to serve, how are you going to serve them. And so here's the one caveat that I will throw out there. Normally, you would get to the point where you're going to throw an event when you have some type of result for your clientele. Now, if you have no idea what you're doing, you have like zero experience whatsoever, it's very challenging to train. And also you want to make sure you're doing this ethically and more, morally, but it's very tough to train on a topic and to share how to do something if you haven't personally done it in the past. So that is the one caveat I will say, that even if you are brand new. Now, when I say new, some people may have been in a certain skill set forever, maybe in like a 9-to-5 job, and now they're trying to do it, by themselves. So if you already know the process and the procedure or whatever, then you can take it, you can apply what I'm going to share. So the plan phase is who you're going to serve, how, and what does that look like, and the details that go into it. And then it's also getting clear on what is the intention of the event. Because when someone comes in, they're coming to you because they have a problem. And you, as the expert in whatever it is that you do, are showing them how to go from here to here, right? Over the course, ideally, of 5 days. When someone comes in, one thing we need to understand is that an event like this, it can't just be information. Because if it were just information, man, with everything AI now, like you could look up anything, you'd have an answer, and everyone would be, they'd be fit, they would be rich, and they would have beautiful relationships. But that's not always how it works. So it's got to be implementation. It's got to be transformation. So if you don't have a transformative style event, a lot of times people just give out all like the facts and okay, well, now you do this, and now here's steps 1 through 3, and it doesn't convert, and they wonder why. Because you have to change the belief system in the individual. Because when they come in, they're over here saying, I don't even know if it's possible. And you want to take them through sort of like this 5-stage where it's like, hey, I don't know if it's possible, to I can do this, I will do this, I must do this, I'd be crazy not to do this. And the only way you're going to take them from here all the way to over there is usually one of the easiest ways is through transformative style stories. So like storytelling, that needs to be part of it. There's a certain structure on how you want to lay out your 5 days. And I have other tools and stuff like that we can give people to like literally help you walk through that process. But that's the first phase, is you have to be hyper clear on the plan. If you don't have the plan, it doesn't work. The second portion is build. So when I say build, you can have something super just, skeleton, wireframe, nothing crazy. It can literally be a basic landing page, a Google sheet, and just an email that says, hey, welcome to the challenge. I've seen people go super in depth. They have like a whole entire back end. They have, multiple upsells, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, you got to have some type of direction that you can point somebody in that says, hey, if you want to register, click on this button. And then we just got to send them reminders to make sure that they show up. So that's part 2. So plan 1 is build. Part 1 is build. Part 2, it's English. Part one is plan. Part two is build. Tongue twister. Part three is fill. So this, dude, out of all things I'm going to say, the fill part is always, always, always the hardest. I don't care how long you've been in the game, an event, filling it, regardless of whether it is virtual or if it is in person, always the biggest challenge. So there's a handful of different ways to do it. One I'll share here in particular is OPS and OPA. So OPS is other people's stages, or OPA is other people's audiences. I'm going to have the audience I'm going to have. Right now, if I keep running a challenge that obviously ideally converts, which is great, and maybe I have a list of, let's just say 1,000, 10,000, whatever, after a while, if they keep seeing the same things and I keep saying the same message over and over to the same amount of people, eventually I got to get new eyeballs from somewhere. And one of the easiest ways to do it is, let's just say I have a buddy, Brian, and Brian has the ideal avatar that would be a great fit for my challenge. Well, I want to be able to leverage, the connection we have, the relationship and his influence, where he can be like, hey, this guy Brendan's got a challenge going on. I think you guys would absolutely love it. And he drives traffic my way to be able to fill the event moving forward. So it's either you're going to do it organically yourself through any social media channels or a couple other methodologies. You're going to leverage somebody else's audience, potentially create affiliates from those, JVs, partnerships, whatever, and at some point probably paid ads. So, that's how you're going to fill it. So we planned it, we built it out, we filled it, and then the fourth part is you got to host it. So that goes back to, okay, well, how do you create more of a transformative rather than just an informative style event? So, what are the stories? Anytime that you tell a story, you want to make a point. Every time you make a point, you want to tell a story with it. What are the third-party testimonials? What is that structure? What is that flow? What is that takeaway at the end of the day? That as I'm sharing something, it's not talking for the sake of talking. It's talking to transform, to have them realize something in their head, and for them to understand that I know where they're coming from, as the leader of this event, and be like, hey man, like I get where you're at. Let me show you that yellow brick road to Emerald City to help you understand that there's a clear path to success in whatever that is. And that's the beauty of this, because it doesn't matter, like I said, what vertical you're in. If you know how to bake the world's best chocolate cake, and you can teach somebody how to do that, awesome. There's a series of steps you can follow. And then the last one is sell. So you need to have an offer that will convert. And a lot of times I've seen when, let's just say a life coach, there's a lot of people that get life coach certifications. Like, how do you differentiate yourself? So, when you provide this offer, it has to be sort of like this next natural ascension to want to move forward with you. And here's the mistake I see a lot of people make, is they give their entire offer and they just cram it all into 5 days. And then they don't really leave much of a reason for a person to move forward or work with them, on an ongoing basis. So anyways, that's the general gist of it. Those are the 5 pillars. So plan, build, fill, host, and sell. And if you follow that methodology, it makes bringing your event to life that much easier.
All right. It sounds like, a lot of effort to put in, because you mentioned plan, then build it, then fill it, then host it. And when you are hosting for the 5 days challenge, it's like, you need to retain the audience. So that's the kind of incredible thing to do. So would you like to share any experience, that your first experience, how was that? How did you retain those audience?
Yeah. So a couple things I'll say. One, the benefit and the reason why we do 5 days is the longer your event, the more forgiving it is. Now, you also have to be careful about going too long, because if you look at the attrition rate, so attrition just being how many people hop off of your challenge that are not live with you. And I've got some general numbers across the board, but basically, on day one, you typically have your highest show up. And then, between days 2 to 5, it can naturally fall off. And that just tends to be, how it works. So just going in, knowing and expecting that. One of the things that I always tell everybody, I don't care if there's one person, if there's 10 people or 10,000, you always bring the same level of excitement, engagement, and enrollment. So those are the 3 E's that you always want to be able to master. So excitement, engagement, and enrollment. And I need to make sure that from the time that I get in there, that I set the expectations. They know exactly like what they're going to get over the course of these 5 days, and that I fulfill on that. speaking by itself and communication is a skill set that if you haven't practiced it, the 5-day challenge is a great way to do so, because you are going to be dead in front of camera. And you want to make sure, there's the speaking by itself is a huge piece of this. And I've seen people that are great in other, avenues. Maybe they do brick and mortar or whatever else, and they try to adjust to the online world, and then maybe they've never done something in this. You can't be a boring speaker. Like if I just came on, I was like, "Hi guys, welcome to my challenge, and today we're going to learn about," like, dude, like you would fall asleep in that class, right? So it's that thing where you really want to pull them in. We want to understand. We want to have interactions with the audience and say, "Hey, if this is where you're trying to get to, awesome. Like, let's talk about that. Let's deep dive." Like, I want to keep that energy and action flowing. So yeah, that part is huge. When I said it's forgiving, you can mess up and you can still retain your audience and you can still retain high numbers. The smaller your events, the more on point absolutely everything has to be. So for example, and this happens all the time, you can have a tech snafu, right? Zoom can stop. Maybe your streaming doesn't work. Your internet freezes. Something crashes. Your camera breaks. Like I've had all those things happen and I've seen them all happen. So anyhow, 5 days, it grants you a lot of leeway, and your audience, because they get a chance to know, like, and trust you over the course of that time period, it just makes it a lot easier where you can still have those conversions and make it a sustainable model. So yes, while it is a lot of energy moving forward, at the end of the day, this is something that you can use technically month after month, quarter after quarter, year after year, and be in a good spot to always provide value, build your email list, and make sales.
All right. So that's super interesting thing to do. And the thing that you have shared, you can't be boring speaker. So you got to also learn that how to get your audience attention all the time. And things would come up, like you just talked about technical stuffs that might come up. So you need to just stick to it and keep on doing the stuff. So apart from this, I really would love to ask, what is the advice you would like to give to somebody who is an entrepreneur or who is trying to be an entrepreneur?
So actually, there was a woman I interviewed, and I liked her piece of advice she gave me, so I'll pass it forward. Especially when you're brand new, you need to try and get yourself out there as much as possible. Get on more podcasts, host your own events, because when you do that, it creates a certain amount of authority, right? So when you're putting yourself out there, if people can't find you, then it puts you as like this best kept secret. And I know there's a lot of people that might be listening to this saying, "Man, like I'm so good at what I do. I know I could radically transform someone's health, wealth, relationships." But the problem is, if no one knows you, then it's very challenging to get yourself out there and get yourself, or your business to a level where you want it to be. So there was something I heard at a Grant Cardone event, and out of all things I took, he said, "Best known always beats best." Best known always beats best. So if you on a 1 to 10 or an 11, and Mary Jane down the street is like a 6 out of 10, but Mary's 5 times louder than you, well, then guess what? They're probably going to pick her. So for you, if you have the opportunity, the only thing a lot of times I think that holds us back is just getting in our own heads of, well, what will someone think of me? And, well, I've never done this before, but what if I mess up? And like we get all this internal dialogue. Focus on getting just massive wins for other people and stop thinking about your damn self. And if you can do that and stop being selfish and worried about, well, what about me? And what about this? And how am I going to look? And how am I going to come off? And what if I make a goof? All that's going to happen, and that's fine. But anything worth doing is worth doing badly at first until you can get better at it and you can figure out, okay, well, don't do it this way, do it this way. And dude, if I could tell you how many things I learned the hard way until I finally like understood the right way to do it, you just have to be willing to get over that hurdle.
All right. So that's something a great share. I would say that you have shared that great stuff. People that no matter what, just keep the work going and get the work done. Right. So that's something interesting. So where people can find you, like if you have any website to connect with, or like you would want people to connect with you on Instagram, on Facebook, somewhere.
Yeah. So all my social handles are the same. So it's official Brendan M, Brendan, and then M. Um, Probably the easiest way. And if you can, I give a gift to your audience. Is that cool?
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
great.
Okay. So if you go to 5daychallengebook.com, in the book, every single thing that I just talked about is fully broken down in there. It also includes the audio version. So if somebody wants to listen to it, and there's a whole bunch of bonuses that go with it as well. I would love to give it to your audience for free. So if they use the code challenge accepted, all as one word, they can actually get the book, the audio, and the bonuses for free. So yeah, man, if somebody wants to do it, that breaks down the entire thing and it'll make their life a lot easier.
Perfect. So there is a one more thing that I really would like to do is that I would definitely mention his FB handle or maybe his website in the description so that anybody can find you easily. And I really would like to say thanks to the audience who has been listening to us. And I really would like to say from the bottom of my heart to my guest as well, thank you for sharing the golden nuggets with the audience. And trust me, when the experts like you come on the show and share it with audience, it really helps us to strengthen the mindset that it is really possible. It does not
Mm-hmm.
even matter what we are into. If the people like you who are doing it, definitely we can do the same.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I appreciate you letting me share the value, and hopefully they can take what I've given and really put it into action. The only reason somebody wouldn't be successful with this is that they just don't try. So here's the biggest thing, man. I'll say you just put your head down, do the work, and if you're willing to do it, there's the last thing I'll throw out there. I go by PDR: plan, do, review. And anything you want to go after, if you can plan it, you do it, you review it, you tweak and modify. Do that. That will eventually bring you across the finish line. And I'm here to support however I can.
That's amazing. People, this is a great piece of advice that you can ever receive, right? So thank you so much once again. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being on.
Perfect.